and welcome back to another episode of the Choose954 podcast, episode 85, with the Joan Godoy, our upcoming AAF CreativeZen speaker this Friday morning, who we're very excited to have share her thought-provoking and inspiring story with us. If you didn't know about Choose954, myself, Evan Snow, my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, as local arts advocates and community builders, started an initiative to cultivate culture and community in my native Broward County in an effort to keep people in the know with all the great things that are going on, to make Broward a better place to live and not just a better place to vacation because we live here. So the point of the podcast is to connect you, the listener, with inspiring people doing amazing things in the community, and Joanne has no shortage of amazing things that she does. So without much further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself at a high level and who you are?
Thank you, Evan. Now I want to move to Broward based on what you were saying. But as you were saying, my name is Joan Godoy. I'm a proud Guatemalan that moved to Miami out of love or because of love 6 years ago. And what I do now that I think is a great definition of who I am as a person in my professional career, which is also my personal journey, is that I run a Miami-based social impact accelerator. And I love those three words together because it means that it's all about the people, right? And impacting people's lives and working with leaders and organizations that can do that faster and better so that we can strengthen our communities, right? So we say that we're a Miami-based social impact accelerator. And the way we do that is by investing in leaders like you that are doing great things in the community so that you can scale the impact that you want to have. We try to engage locals around those missions and those visions. We co-create innovative solutions to accelerate change. And last but not least, because we work with leaders, locals, and build solutions, we try to build coalitions around issues that we all care about so that we can solve those challenges, so that we can strengthen our communities, right? And just making it what we want them to be. And under that umbrella, of course, there are many programs and projects that go underneath each of those umbrellas. But I think for the sake of this conversation, right, I'll keep it there that I'm very passionate about solving social challenges and doing everything that it takes and everything that matters to solve them so that we can all live beautiful lives.
And that passion shines through. Anybody that's had an opportunity to meet you or speak with you or even hear you speak, and we'll give you guys an opportunity to hear speak this upcoming Friday morning, can truly see that passion shine through. But why don't you just take us back for a moment to kind of how you got started on this journey in summary, and how this path led you to where you are today.
I blame my parents. As I said earlier, I was born and raised in Guatemala, which is this beautiful, tiny country in Central America. And it is so diverse in every single sense that you can think of, Evan, and that is both a blessing and a curse for the country. There's a lot of economic disparity. There are significant racial disparities. There's definitely women and men disparities, right? So it's a country with so many resources and so many possibilities, and not enough infrastructure to make those work for their own people, right? So I was kind of like thrown into the water of that since a very early age, because my dad is an environmentalist. So we had access, right, to exploring the country, to seeing all these different realities. And I was always passionate about learning and curious about people's stories, right, and what they could do with their own experiences. And I wanted to be like my dad. It's just that he wanted to hug trees and I wanted to hug people. So after my teenage years, I decided, like, what do I do with all of this, right? So I decided to study psychology, mostly on the social aspects of psychology and elements of community development and sustainability, etc. So that's how I started facilitating courses in remote communities in my country. And after 4 or 5 years of doing that, right, and recognizing that it wasn't only a matter of do you have the will to become a leader, it's a matter of do you have the context and the infrastructure that's going to allow you to make your visions and your mission happen. And I became critical of the system, right, and all the obstacles in the system, especially for people that have been historically marginalized. So fast forward, I gathered my frustration and my passion is that I need to do something bigger. So I got a full ride scholarship to study in the Netherlands on mastering like the management of NGOs, right? What is best known in the US as nonprofits. And after that, I haven't really stopped. I lived in Costa Rica for 2 years, Chile for a year, went back to Guatemala to work for the UN. And I moved to Miami in 2017 when I started working for Radical Partners to do more of that in an issue agnostic kind of way, because we support people working on climate change or gender equity or poverty alleviation, you name it. It's all about like, what are you trying to change? How are you going to address it? And how can we do that better, bolder, faster?
Amen. Amazing, and very modest of you, very humble of you. There's a lot more highs and lows to this story that thankfully we're so excited and humbled to have Joanne share this Friday morning as part of AAF CreativeZen, our monthly breakfast lecture series, a mini TED Talk, where we bring in local people in the community to share their thought-provoking and inspiring story that initially served as my aha moment and inspiration that led me down this path of arts, culture, community building, and creative entrepreneurship, which is why I decided to pay it back and pay it forward by continuing to host these events for free for the betterment of the community. We're really excited to bring CreativeZen to a new home this month inside the Alvin Sherman Library at Nova Southeastern University in Davie, Florida. This first iteration we're going to have inside of the new Levan Center for Innovation, which is on the 5th floor of the building. And we've made free parking available. It's a completely free event. Coffee, pastries are included. There is an opportunity when the doors open to mix and mingle with fellow community members, which has led to a lot of great friendships, partnerships, and other great things that have happened in the community. The talk starts at 9 with a brief introduction. We help put everybody in a Zen state and put the Zen in Zen by integrating a brief guided breathwork and meditation exercise led by my dear friend and coach, Chloe Ravel of Rising Nature Retreats, who's a partner of this great event. And then we do start the talk shortly thereafter, and we try to wrap things up by 9:50 with a little opportunity for some Q&A to get everybody out on their way if they need to get back to work by 10. We try to be respectful of everybody's time. You can find the event on Facebook, on Eventbrite, under AAF CreativeZen. And we also record all these talks and put them on YouTube and social media. So if you miss one or you want to go back and maybe gain some inspiration from some of our previous speakers, you can go ahead and do so. We're really big on inspiration, and that leads me to asking you, you've been a tremendous source of inspiration for me and my fellow Social Entrepreneurship Bootcamp members and everybody else that's been impacted by Radical Partners programs. But who have been some people that come to mind that have served as inspiration for you on this journey?
So many. First of all, thank you so much, Evan, for this space. I'm excited to not only travel to Broward, but to see you in your element and learn more about your community and share my story, so that hopefully that will spark some inspiration in others. But I'm sure that through the Q&A and through the conversation, we will all leave that room feeling pumped and hopefully more confident about what we're doing. So I'm excited for that. So giving credit where credit's due. I will mention my dad, right? As I told you, I think his career as a Guatemalan professional, bilingual in his time, very early on the environmental space, really paved the way for me in terms of what could a successful career look like when you're trying to change and save the world, right? So I think he's really been not only my dad, but a mentor and a sponsor, both in money and in inspiration, when I was younger, right? So a lot of credit for him. But then when it comes to people that are relatively famous nowadays, I think now that I finally see myself and feel confident enough to perceive myself as a leader, I think there are very particular people that I admire, that I follow, and that I try to um, shadow as much as possible because of the integrality, or like the complexity in the good sense of their leadership. So I will mention Trevor Noah, for example, right? This guy from South Africa who's a comedian, and he leverages his platform to push certain social agendas, right? And to make us question certain standards of living. And he also has in place with different identities, right? Being mixed with a Swiss dad, if I'm not mistaken, and a mom who's from South Africa. So I really see him and I admire his authenticity, the way he dresses, the way he talks, the amount of things that he knows, right? And he uses humor to advance that. So that's definitely a person that I admire tremendously. Then when it comes to female leadership and passionate leadership, Brené Brown definitely comes to mind. How she talks about that being vulnerable, what we typically think is a weak thing for you to do, is one of the bravest things you can do, because it's literally exposing yourself in every single way, right? Are you crying? Are you angry? Are you fearful? And not only despite of that you keep moving, but because of that you keep moving. So that inspiration I always carry with me. And then on the business side of things, right, Simon Sinek, or Simon Sinek, however people pronounce his last name, definitely brings that more practical approach to business decisions and to economic decisions. But he always does it with people at the center, right? Like there's no sense in you advancing a company or growing a company if people are not thriving inside your company and outside the company, right? So I think those three are key pillars for me in terms of, okay, how do I do business in an ethical way? How do I present myself in a raw and authentic way, and which is still brave? And how am I always curious and always keen to learn and explore the world as Trevor, Simon, and Brené Brown do? And if they listen to this podcast, by all means, I would love to meet any of them. But there's a fourth pillar, Evan, that I could go for hours, right, talking about names, because I legitimately mean it when I say that people like you, the people that are part of the Social Entrepreneurship Bootcamp cohort, all of the other programs at Radical Partners, and the people that you serve are the pillar that keep me grounded in terms of what's happening on the ground, despite all the good things that we could hear in terms of the successes of social impact organizations. Working with you all and with your constituents remind us of the fact that the world is still a messy place, and that all of these things coexist. So how do I always keep my feet on the ground in terms of what's needed and what's wanted by the people? And how do I pull from that, right? So that we can do better. And how do I keep pushing people at the top, if we want to see it that way, that are perceived as leaders, as funders, etc., to look back to the ground and vice versa, right? So being that bridge of reality and future are key pillars in my life. And I always try to pay attention to these three people, but most importantly to the people and the organizations in that fourth pillar that I mentioned.
Amen. If my mother didn't have enough reason to love this podcast episode and the talk will come in this Friday morning, my mom's a big Brené Brown fan, and initially turned me on to her TED Talk and all the power of vulnerability. So I know she's going to get a big kick out of that. And maybe we'll find a way to tag Trevor Noah, Simon, Brene, and some other folks, and maybe get them to share either at CreativeZen or to RP one day. You mentioned the Social Entrepreneurship Bootcamp. I just want to at least say in full transparency, it was something on my bucket list, target list, goal list for years, having seen so many leaders in the community having gone through the program. Even our most recent CreativeZen speaker, Karen Prescott, having gone through this program. And when I initially found out about it and was encouraged to apply, I wasn't in a position to join. I was actually still working my desk job as a recruiter, doing Choose954 and some of the things on the side many years ago. Unfortunately, when the opportunity represented itself, I was in the position to make the time and the space to go through this wonderful program, which if anybody's been following on my social media, you've probably seen postings about it over the last couple of months after we recently completed in December. But for those that are not familiar with the bootcamp, could you just give us a brief summary of what RP does to lift up leaders in the social impact space?
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. So as I mentioned, like investing in leaders or social impact leaders is one of our main pillars at Radical Partners. And that's the origin story of this organization, right? And that origin story belongs to Rebecca Fishman-Lipsey, who's the founder of this organization. And this idea of the bootcamp came out of very organic ways in which she was hearing and seeing social impact leaders feeling burnt out, not having enough resources to do the thing that they wanted to do, not having a clear pathway on how to go about it. So she's like, let me bring this group of people together. Let me teach them what I've done and what I've learned as an executive director. And let's create basically this toolkit box, right? That you can all implement so that you can not only sustain your work, but scale your work. And she was the one that kind of installed this business and entrepreneurial mentality into the social impact ecosystem. So back then, social entrepreneurship was a new term, or a relatively new term. And the program started, and then fast forward to now, right? It's the 7th cohort of this particular program, and we have a few others. But at the core of these leadership development programs, there's an element of very important pillars and tools for you to execute your work. For example, fundraising, right? How are you raising funds so that you can do this? Storytelling. How are you telling your story so that the world knows about the work that you're doing? Team management and project management, right? All very related to the execution of that passion of people, to make sure that it's effective and efficient. So that's the core of the program. But alongside those learning sessions or those learning experiences, leaders have the opportunity to redefine themselves as leaders and think of their own brand, if you want to see it that way. How do they want to be perceived? And we really invest as much as possible in the visibility of the leaders, right? That looks like we post about you, we cheer you on, we give you opportunities to be part of panels, we refer you to potential funders, so that we can literally elevate your leadership. And then the third element is that camaraderie, right? And that peer learning in the community that happens amongst all of you, which is a beautiful thing, to belong to a crew of change makers. But also systemically, right? Evan is a great contribution, because those who are working on poverty alleviation or gender equity or climate change, they're not oftentimes talking to each other. So then these leadership development programs serve as an opportunity, like, oh wait, if I'm thinking about gender equity here, how does that affect climate, and vice versa, right? Like, how does climate affect women? So we start seeing these conversations that force all these leaders to zoom out and to think more systemically about the solution and how to go about it. Back to what I was saying at the beginning, bigger, bolder, and faster.
Amazing. And it's one thing to say that you're providing these resources, but it's another thing to do it. And you guys really blew me away, being fortunate enough to go through this last cohort of the boot camp. From the programming to the speakers that you brought in to the books that were provided, including Start With Why, to the alumni opportunities to hear from people that I admire and respect. Felicia Hatcher, Pharrell's partner, to bring her in to speak to the group was truly, and also I would go without saying, to even providing one-on-one coaching or a one-on-one coach in addition to ongoing coaching opportunities, mentorship opportunities, was one of the most rewarding and fulfilling and fruitful experiences that I've been through. And I don't mean to correct you, but you said it was a Miami-based program. I would venture to say now, with myself as a Broward native participating in Daniel Kleinman participating, who lives also in Broward, and even Mimi, who also lives in Broward, it's really now become like a South Florida program, and you really are starting to cover a lot of bases. And that's another reason why I'm really excited to have you share this Friday morning for CreativeZen to hopefully spread the word to our Broward community about not just Social Entrepreneurship Bootcamp, but I don't know how much representation we really have with 10 Days of Connection, another phenomenal program that takes place with support and leadership from Radical Partners. And for those would also want to go without saying, for those that might not know Rebecca, God bless her, the woman that started Radical Partners, she's also now the president of the Miami Foundation, which is, essentially the community foundation of Miami, who does some phenomenal work in the community. And it really does take some forward-thinking, progressive, and altruistic leaders to make change like this happen, to create the space, to create the container for innovation, for motivation, for inspiration, and for continuing education and learning and development. So I'm just forever grateful for the opportunity to be considered and have gone through the program. So wrapping up, for those that would like to find out more about RP first, where could they find RP on Radical Partners on the interwebs?
I love your comments and that question, Evan, because today, which is March 8th, right, of 2023, it marks the second year anniversary of the day in which we signed and I became the owner of Radical Partners back in 2021. So I love that you mentioned Rebecca and honoring her as a founder, right? But what you said about the Miami base, that is something that we implemented when I took over because our work was very local and it was for a few years. But part of my passion, right? And going back to what I was saying about Trevor, I really believe in the global aspects of things and the local aspects of things. So we shifted the language and we say like, okay, we are Miami based, meaning that the fire started here, right? And the fire starts here. But ideally people can come with their torch and take some of that fire away to Broward, to Palm Beach, all the way to the Netherlands, right? So we're definitely in that approach of like, this is where our hub is. We'd be more than happy to keep working with people in other locations. So to learn more about Radical Partners and what we do, you could definitely go to all social media platforms that you can think of, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and you will find us as such, Radical Partners. And then if you're interested in things that are happening, particularly in Broward, the 10 Days of Connection is one of the initiatives that has been most successful in its expansion to Broward, thanks to Corey Flam-Meltzer, who brought it to Broward a few years ago. So you can follow 10 Days of Connection as well on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And I think our handle is 10D of C. And the idea is to keep connecting across lines of difference. And that is something that you can do in Miami, in Broward, in a Zoom room, wherever you go. So I think if you follow any of those things, you will find out about any of the free stuff that we offer and some of the services that we offer as well for a fee. So you can choose your own adventure to accelerate impact wherever you are.
Choose your own adventure. Amen. And Karen actually just dropped me an email and asked me how we're getting involved in 10 Days to Connection, and wants to collaborate with the Bowtie Kids Foundation. So we will be brainstorming some ways that we can do that up here in the 954, and would encourage you guys to check out everything that that Radical Partners has going on, that Joanna has going on, and even the Miami Foundation has going on. There's some really great things going on at the Alvin Sherman Library, on the campus of NSU, not just CreativeZen, but they're bringing in phenomenal speakers, astronauts, authors, Pulitzer Prize winners, and everybody else in between. So we're really excited to bring this series of events with our monthly breakfast lecture series, mini TED Talk, to NSU. If you'd like to find out more about these events and what Choose954 has going on, log on to our website, social media at Choose954. I'm an open book. You could always email me with any questions, choose954@unitusgroup.com. And we will be glad to continuing making an impact in our community and beyond. I participated in the Social Entrepreneurship Bootcamp under our Zero Empty Spaces initiative, where we activate vacant commercial real estate spaces to create affordable working artist studios, and received a lot of insight and guidance regarding growing and scaling, and also launching an e-commerce component, which we're going to be fundraising for, to help us make a bigger impact and help us give our artists an opportunity to sell their artwork online through our e-commerce channel. And I'm forever grateful for everybody, including Magda, my coach, and everybody on the team's support in this process. It was truly one of the best experiences that I was ever fortunate enough to go through, and I could never give enough testimonials and enough praise, and not just for our people, but even just to be amongst my peers, amongst fellow community leaders that were doing some amazing things in the community, Debris Free Oceans, Seaworthy Collective, arts programs, and opportunities to mentor youth, and there was a lot more noteworthy causes than just Zero Empty Spaces. So you can find out more about the Social Entrepreneurship Bootcamp on the Radical Partners website and on social media. And we're really looking forward to having you here, Joanne, share her story this Friday morning, March 10th, at the Alvin Sherman Library on the campus NSU at the Levan Center of Innovation. Free parking, free event. You'll be out of there by 10. If you need something to tell your boss about why you might be missing the first half of the morning, we have a true and truthful list of reasons of why you might be in a position to miss a little bit of work, to gain some inspiration and nuggets that you'll bring back to your team in your workplace. You can find that on the Facebook event page, or email me for the list. I'd be glad to share with you. You never know how one of these events can change your life, your community, or maybe even the art world or beyond, as a result of the inspiration that comes from these talks. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in, and I look forward to seeing you Friday morning and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. See you soon.